I have with me the filmmaker Kyle for Dancing Limbo. So,
Hello.
Kyle, would you please introduce yourself and let us know how you got into filmmaking and what the motivation or inspiration behind Dancing Limbo was?
Yeah, of course. Well, my name is Kyle Openshaw. I'm 22. I'm currently a senior at the University of Arizona in Tucson, majoring in film. But that was not like what I originally went into. I think I started school as computer science and then bounced around to film and then dropped out of film. And I just didn't really want to get like a film degree. But then I kind of realized that it was the only thing that I could study and get an A in, and like be motivated to learn about. Yeah. So now I'm in film, and that's what I'll graduate with. And yeah, so U of A functions. There's a BA program and then a BFA, like a Bachelor of Fine Arts. And when you're in the film BFA program, you're pushed towards all the like production classes, like cinematography, editing, all that stuff. Um, and I ended up not even applying for the BFA. I just went the BA route. So most of my school is focused on like producing and the business aspect behind film, but
Yeah.
I still really wanted to make something.
Yeah.
So I wrote the script for Dancing Limbo and got all my buddies together, and we just kind of filmed it on our own time outside of school with no like interference from like having to get graded on certain things.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was like a pure passion project for like everybody involved, which made it just like really good energy throughout the whole thing. And it started off as some comedy script about these stoners who found a billboard that led them into this like random desert. But then as we were writing the script, I like bounced it around to, I was in a screenwriting class, and then all my friends would help as well. And I kind of decided that like, well, it like took the turn into, oh, this could be like this limbo thing where they had like maybe overdosed or were on drugs. And then it turned into this whole like fundraiser from there, because fentanyl is like this insanely prevalent drug that is kind of making it into everything. My cousin goes to school in Prescott Valley, and he's told me, I think, 3 different stories of students just accidentally overdosing on fentanyl without realizing what they were taking.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we kind of turned this film into more of a PSA. I guess the main purpose is to just raise awareness of the fact that like, if you're not careful, drugs can be dangerous. So
Yeah.
now
And
all of
out
the
there.
proceeds are getting donated to Arizona Prevention Works, which is a harm reduction organization here in Tucson, or Arizona, really.
That's amazing. So with this film, it started off as a comedy, and then
Yeah.
as you got deep into this film, like you started thinking about just the impact that it could potentially have, which is
Right.
why it morphed into what it is now. And for a
Totally.
lot of people listening to this Q&A, Dancing Limbo is available in our on-demand section of our festival. So be sure to check that out. But what other films do you have like in the pipeline? Like what other projects like were you thinking about like after this? Like I know that, this film is just beginning like the film festival circuit. Um yeah.
Well, see, this is a hard question. Once I finished this, I was so drained because it was a passion project. I wrote it and then directed it and filmed it and edited it and
My gosh,
produced
you
it.
did everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just so intricate and exhausting. And I loved doing it, but I like took a step back and started helping on other student projects and just like short films that we're filming here in Tucson. So at the moment, I don't particularly have any like scripts written, but like I'm still yearning to make stuff.
Yeah, like
I
what are
think,
some of the other ideas that you have like in mind of like things that you want to do?
yeah, there is this one song that I really want to shoot a music video for. I think it already has a music video, but in my mind, I have this script written for it where this cop is chasing this like mysterious guy into the woods, and he finds this like weird notebook in the back of his car, and he noticed that he's like sprinted off, so he like goes chasing after him, and they end up on the side of a cliff. I grew up in Flagstaff, so I'm really close to Sedona.
Yeah.
So in the summers, we would go cliff jumping all the time. And so I picture this story just, they both meet at this edge of a cliff, and this guy just like yeets himself off and lands in the water. And then you see this weird symbol, and then he ends up behind him. So like this whole like fun sci-fi thing that I would love to film. I have it like pictured very vividly in my head. And then I wrote another script that has no dialogue about an artist whose wife thinks he's cheating on him and destroys his artwork. And then it just ends with a simple, like, instead of him presenting his painting, he just has hung up this like massively destroyed piece of art and still is like, here's my art. So that was kind of a fun thing. But the project that I want to do next, I don't know what it's about. All I know is I just want there to be a man that is wearing a giraffe suit, like a giraffe pajama onesie. I don't know how it fits into any story, but I just think it would be visually and structurally interesting to have this man. I don't know if it would go like the artificial intelligence route, or it could be, I don't know. It's just what I want to write about.
So where did that idea come from? Like that you would want to make a film around a man in a giraffe onesie?
That's a great question. I'm actually not entirely sure. Maybe from like a dream. One of my favorite TV shows was, have you ever seen Wilfred?
No.
So it's this guy who's a bit paranoid, and he gets a new neighbor, and his neighbor has a dog, but he sees this dog as just this 30-year-old grown man in a dog costume. And he's like smoking cigarettes. He's like this terrible influence on his life. And it's just like a funny juxtaposition of like this one dude like hallucinating almost. So I think it'd be a really fun character to play around with. And it's just something different.
Well, I think that's like the fun part right now, because it's like, because you're almost like just beginning with your filmmaking journey, I feel like it's all about just kind of diving in, just trying different things, seeing what works. And I know that just talking with a lot of other filmmakers, they don't really know sometimes like how a particular story is going to end, but they have an idea and they just kind of like go with it. And then
It's
all of a sudden,
right?
yeah, it literally like the story ends up coming together, So I think that
this is like one of my favorite parts about filmmaking in general, is like the collaborative process of everything. So I'll like sit down with my buddies and we'll talk about like script ideas. And it's just fun as we get like further and further in. It just like takes, wild paths that you would never even think about. And then you have this like completely interesting, unique story, all because everybody's like working on it together, which was the same.
So your friends are all into film as well?
Yeah. So like with Limbo, all the people that helped on the production side of it were in film. And then everybody acting in it was a BFA acting student at the UA.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so great.
Like my tight group of friends. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
You know what? And that's like the best part. It's like, I feel like my biggest regret from college was I didn't interact with the film school, because like I was in the BFA program for acting at USC, and like obviously like USC was like, when I was attending, it was like the #1 film school, and it's just like I was just so busy just working multiple jobs, like trying to survive, pay for rent, like pay for tuition, it's like I was so busy like doing that I didn't have like the mental space to be able to go and network and interact with the film students. And so it's just people watching this Q&A, like if you are in college, like
my friends,
make the time, make the time, like the loans, like they will pay for itself, like take out a loan, like do something, just free yourself up like mentally, so that you can focus on what it is that you're in school for. I feel like that's the advice that I have for so many, aspiring actors, like all the things like, and even like filmmakers, right? It's just, they are distracted by so many different things, and they're all important things. But the thing is like really try to free yourself up to be present for like your art, because then, it's like, I feel like you can go so much further with that. Right.
I think it's hard because sometimes, like, when you go to make something, there's always the fear of like, what if this sucks? Like, what if we put all this time and effort into it and it's not great? Like, I think one of the best things I did was get our group of friends together and we made the stupidest film I think you could make. It was called The Drive Back Home. And it was about these two people who realized that they left a hard drive underneath the washing machine of the house they had previously lived in. So they get disguises on and they go
Oh,
break into the house and pick up this drive. And it turns out to be this frat dude's house. And they find him sitting on the couch just completely naked and have this weird interaction with him and then leave. That was the whole film. It was terrible. But like making something that sucked was so much fun, and there was like no pressure to like have it be good. So that was kind of like a freeing exercise that we.
well, not only that, but it's like when you do end up just diving in and making things, even though it doesn't necessarily, you know, it's not as great as you hope it would be. It's like, I feel like there's like a learning lesson from that. Like you learn stuff, like why was it bad, you know, and then you can apply that to like future projects, right? There's always a lesson in something. So it's not entirely wasted.
I've learned so much from specifically this film was like the first like film I've made that I sent out to festivals, and we got a lot of no's from festivals. So thanks for playing it at this one.
Yes, no, and you know what, that's okay. Because the thing is, like, I feel like there's so many reasons why festivals don't accept a particular film. And a lot of the times, like sometimes it has nothing to do with how good or not good, you know, a film is. I mean, a lot of the times it does, but sometimes, like, especially for festivals that are actually like, you know, screening movies in like theaters, sometimes it literally just has to do with like programming. Like, can they just time wise program this film into their
Yeah,
already existing like slate of films that they have planned? Because
totally.
like, so that's why if you're submitting a film, like a short film for like film festivals that have like live screenings in a theater, just like a pro tip, if your film is like 5 minutes or under, like the likelihood of your film getting accepted is
Right.
much higher than if your film is over 10 minutes. So if your film is
Totally.
going to be over 10 minutes, it has to be really, really good. Like in
Yeah.
the sense that like it has to have like a story, because usually for like film festivals there's like a panel of judges, right? And then they all give a score, and the
Yeah.
score, at least for us, and the score has to be high enough, like, you know, above the other films in order to be accepted. Or, you know, you have to know somebody at the festival, you know,
Right.
and that's like another way. Like, you know, a lot of really big film festivals like Sundance and, you know, like Toronto and like Tribeca, like the really big like marquee festivals. I've known
Mhm.
a lot of films that were okay, they were mediocre, but because they knew the programmer, like
Right.
it got accepted. And so that's kind of like when the whole networking aspect, you know, comes into play. Like, you know, like life really is about who you know, like who you've worked with. Like maybe there's like an executive producer that's attached to your project and they've had films that played at these other festivals, like because there's like this networking aspect to it. Like the likelihood of your film getting accepted is much higher than if like there's a film with like, you know, like nobody, you know, like that these
Yeah,
marquee
totally.
festivals knows, you know, in it. So it's like,
That's another
that's,
good reason to go meet buddies and make things in college is you just meet people. Yeah. It is
yeah,
kind of all about who you know. I mean, that's
it
how I've got
is.
jobs working in film, even in Tucson. It's just somebody recommended somebody and they were busy and they recommended somebody and they were busy and they recommended me and I ended up on their set.
Yeah. Yes. And so I think that whenever you have the opportunity to network, especially when you're young, like you should totally take advantage of it. Because again, it's like you never know where a lot of these like projects and a lot of these films are going to go. I mean, that's like a really big reason why I started this film festival. Like I started this film festival because I myself as a filmmaker, like I started making films because, you know, when I was acting in California, I wanted to I wanted to go and like act in these amazing projects, but I wasn't getting cast in these projects. So I was like, oh, this sucks, you know? So then I started, you know, making my own films and I was like, okay, well, if
Yeah,
I'm not going to get cast for these projects, and I'm going to like create opportunities for myself. So I started
totally.
writing and directing, and then I started going that route. And then when I went to these film festivals, you know, our film actually got accepted into film festivals. I, you know, would meet these incredible filmmakers that I wanted to work with as an actor,
Yeah.
but it was impossible to like connect with them. It's like you
Right.
talk to them, you say, oh, I saw your film, like it was so great, but then like nothing really materializes. But then I realized that all these filmmakers at these festivals, they connected with like the film festival director. So I was like, okay, like I'm going to create a film festival.
Yeah.
And it was purely to connect with like the next Christopher Nolan, like before they're Christopher Nolan. It's to find
Totally.
these like up and coming filmmakers, up and coming screenwriters, where once they, like become big and like, their career takes off, there's just so many more gatekeepers like that prevent you from connecting with them. Right. So
Well,
it's
it
like,
seems like it worked. I mean, that's how we met. Christina produced a
yeah,
film, was acting in it, and came to Tucson. And I happened to be an intern at the time and taking set photography, and then we connected there.
yep. And it was so crazy because while we were filming, like, we had some downtime, and Kyle was like, oh, there's this film that I'm making,
Yeah.
and it's about, fentanyl and drug overdose. And that is a problem, especially now more than ever, where these drugs, like weed, like in the film, are laced with fentanyl. And the way that
Totally.
fentanyl works, like even a very small amount can literally kill you. And
Minuscule.
so and
Right.
so the
And I
thing is,
think
it's just,
our film is a bit not incorrect. The likelihood of marijuana being laced with fentanyl is not very high. It's more of like an opioid thing. If you have like Percocets or Xanax or like kids or drugs that younger kids are like, oh, like let me try this, which
oh, this
happens
is
frequently.
colorful. Like, what's
Right.
this?
Yeah.
But you know what? There are drugs that are laced with things like, it's like, and marijuana, like, it's like you hear stories about marijuana being laced with, harder drugs, right? And so it's just,
Totally.
I feel like it's
It's
definitely
not impossible. Yeah.
it's definitely something that I think there needs to be an awareness around, especially for the younger
Yeah.
generation. And, if anything, to like not be so trusting of people,
Totally.
because it's like in your film, it was like a friend bringing the
His favorite.
stuff
Yeah,
to his
exactly.
friends, like he didn't know either, but it's just like, just really, really being careful.
Yeah,
And
which I think
so,
this is like the whole reason we chose Arizona Prevention Works as like an organization to give money to from this. Um, they don't preach like abstinence of drugs. I think that's potentially the wrong way to go about it because people are just going to do drugs. Like it exists, people do them. So what they do is they help provide testing kits and Narcan, which is this miracle drug that can like immediately cut off I actually don't know exactly how it works, but it can stop an overdose extremely effectively and
mhm.
almost instantaneously. And they help with that and clean needles and giving people resources that want to go to rehab if that's something that they choose to do. But it's all about reducing the amount of deaths and overdoses, which is also the goal of abstinence, but I think it's not as effective as a harm reduction organization like SPW.
Well, I think that what a lot of people aren't realizing is the why behind why a lot of these people are doing drugs, because like
Which is an
sometimes
intricate question. Yeah.
sometimes they, like there's another film that got accepted into our festival. It's called Beyond Homeless, and it
Mhm.
talks about the homeless crisis in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And it's just they're trying to solve for the homeless crisis and start a conversation around why, like the homeless population blew up in San Francisco. And a lot of the times there are a lot of mental health issues. And, I think a conversation that not a lot of people have are just like, why are people like doing drugs? Like, is it because, something that happened, like in their childhood? Is it something, do
Right.
they have severe anxiety that, that stems from something in their life that they can't get a handle on? It's just like, so the whole point of this documentary that was accepted is it compares it to a program in San Antonio where the homeless crisis also used to be out of control, but then they got it under control because they started like a haven almost, and they have
Yeah.
resources where they not only like provide, a roof over, people's heads, but they provide them counseling, they provide them like skills, like, and so it's like I feel like that's the part of the conversation that's missing whenever we talk
Absolutely.
about drugs and rehab and
Right.
all of that stuff, right?
No, that sounds like a great film. So
Oh
I
yeah,
was
no,
going to
yeah.
ask when you were talking earlier about programming. like how did Limbo fit into your festival? Like if there
Well,
were
so
any.
it's like for our festival, it's like it's great because we ever since COVID happened, we moved to become a virtual festival.
Oh,
So we're not as limited by time. But when I was programming films for, like AMC at the Downtown Metreon in San Francisco, I remember like there would be films that were great, but I had to choose between that film and this other film that was, almost as good, maybe not as good, but it was 5 minutes and it fit into the slot because I only had 5 minutes left for that
yeah.
particular block. So of course we went with that one, So it's just like, I just know from firsthand experience that, that's the reason why keeping short films, especially like, unless they're amazing, and by amazing, I mean like the picture quality, the audio quality, the coloring, like the story, like all
All
of that stuff,
aspects.
you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. So in that sense, I just feel like that's definitely something to keep in mind. But I feel like with your project, the reason why we liked your project was because, again, it was about drugs and it was about a crisis that is happening. And we thought that it'd be good, a good conversation, to have, which is
Yeah.
why we're having this conversation with you as a filmmaker who made this film,
Yeah.
And so Kyle, if people want to kind of follow your filmmaking journey, what are your
Yeah.
social media like handles? Like, how can people find you and stay in touch with you?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about the film, KyleOpenshaw.com, KyleOpenshaw.com is like about me and the film. And then my Instagram is at framed by 35. And that's where most of my photography is. That's kind of how I got into filmmaking, and any updates about anything there. So if you like my pictures and enjoy the film, come follow the journey, I guess.
Great. Well, Kyle, we are looking forward to seeing all of the wonderful things that you're going to be producing, especially as you begin your filmmaking journey.
Yeah,
And everybody, be sure to check out Kyle's film. And Kyle, I look forward to seeing you next week.
awesome. Thank you, Christina.
You're welcome. Bye.